Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. I have decided to create this YouTube video after seeing the latest spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 236 of the manga. Before we dive into the discussion, I want to issue a spoiler warning for all manga readers who haven't reached this point and for anime-only viewers. With that being said, let's get started with our discussion. I want to clarify that I am not just a fan of Gojo, and I am not exclusively a Sukuna fan either. I am a fan of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole, and I enjoy everything it has to offer, whether it's the characters, both heroes and villains, the setting and its atmosphere, or the overall mood and ambiance. I appreciate all aspects of the story, so please understand that I am not trying to seem biased when it comes to the storytelling of this manga. As we delve into the events of Chapter 236, I was both excited and concerned. The previous chapter, Chapter 235, made it clear that Gojo had put Sukuna in a checkmate situation where he couldn't use domain amplification or Mahoraga to bypass Gojo's infinity, and he was significantly injured after the massive purple blast. Leading into this chapter, fans were speculating about various possible outcomes. Some theories suggested Yorozu's gift and the fusion of Mahoraga with all the other Shikigamis known as the Ten Shadows Totality, Sukuna's trump card and his hidden technique, as well as the possibility of him using his full form while wielding the cursed weapons shown in one of the previous color pages of the manga. There was also a theory of Kinjaku's intervention to either save Sukuna or absorb him for the merger. Surprisingly, none of these predictions ended up happening. Now, let's discuss some of the issues I have with this chapter. Gojo's death happened off screen. We didn't get to see what happened right after the end of chapter 235. Instead, we are given an explanation by Sukuna that Mahoraga's long-range attack, which managed to cut Gojo's arm off, was what allowed Sukuna to defeat Gojo. For instance, when Gojo lost his arm, the fanbase thought that because Sukuna managed to fully tame Mahoraga, the latter was able to borrow his master's curse technique, which in this case is Sukuna's slash attacks, cleave and dismantle. And given the wheel's adaptability, the slash was able to reach Gojo and bypass his infinity, causing him to lose an arm. That's how most people interpreted it, since we didn't get any explanation. Instead, with this current chapter, we are given an explanation by Sukuna that apparently Mahoraga did not borrow his cleave or dismantle. Instead, the Shikigami was able to somehow extend his focus beyond Gojo and target space itself, which meant that Gojo's affinity and ability to create space around his body was bypassed because the slash attack targeted the space itself. According to Sukuna, after witnessing this for the first time, he was able to grasp it and use this application of curse energy to defeat Gojo. My issue is that I am not convinced by this explanation, as it is not consistent with what has already been established in the story. We all know that Mahoraga's true potential lies in the wheel's ability to adapt to all phenomena, be it offensive, defensive, or neutral, like Gojo's infinity. This adaptability has already been established in the story, thus I had an easier time understanding that Mahoraga could adapt to Gojo's infinity and potentially harm him with his sword. In short, all we knew is that Mahoraga evolves by adapting to any application of curse energy. Chapter 235, Mahoraga had already adapted to Gojo's infinity, but introducing new levels to the adaptation, as in providing Mahoraga an ability to create its own long-range attack similar to Sukuna's without prior hints or setup, is what pushes me to consider this as a forced plot device, as it makes it hard for me to believe what I am reading. In my opinion, storytelling should remain consistent, and consistency is key to making fights or conflicts believable. It's like setting the rules of a game, and when the rules are established and the characters follow said rules, it adds tension and excitement because you can anticipate how the conflict might play out. However, if new rules or abilities suddenly appear during battle, and these newly added rules were not at least hinted at before, it can be quite jarring, because this inconsistency can reduce the story's believability because it undermines the stakes that were originally set. I enjoy this fight, but I just wish the stakes established at the beginning of the fight remain the same throughout the duration of the fight, because that's how the audience can stay engaged and emotionally invested in the outcomes and not simply consider them as forced plot devices. Unfortunately, I was also left unsatisfied with the off-screen death. Knowing that Gojo was amped by the black flashes and had regained his RCT output, I was more than curious to know how he was left reduced to that state. Back when Gojo was first trapped in Sukuna's domain expansion Malevolent Shrine, the first slash cut his head, but because his RCT was so fast, it healed his body as the cut was going through his neck. Additionally, you have to remember that the domain expansion attacks are the strongest slashes Sukuna could perform, since those attacks are the sure hit effect of Sukuna's domain expansion. Knowing that Gojo survived in those conditions and wasn't able to do the same against a regular slash that could only bypass his infinity is not convincing to me. Supposedly, even if Gojo was caught off guard, given that he has already regained his RCT output, I wouldn't think he would have trouble healing the cut as it was tearing through his body, just like he did in his time in a Malevolent Shrine. My last issue with this latest chapter relates to Gojo's character. You see, Gojo and Sukuna were always displayed as equals, the strongest in history and the strongest of today, meaning that there was a strong possibility that this battle could have ended in a draw where both fighters were left incapacitated or dead. However, this didn't happen. Instead, Sukuna won off-screen, and we are given this segment of Gojo conversing with all of his friends who have passed away: Nanami, Haibara, Principal Yaga, and his best friend Geto. In this segment, he mentions something that doesn't make sense to me. He says that he was satisfied with his fight against Sukuna and that he has tried everything in his arsenal to succeed, but still lost. He also mentions that Sukuna is far stronger than him, and he doesn't think he would have won even if Sukuna wasn't possessing the Ten Shadows technique. This goes against everything we witnessed throughout this entire fight, because Gojo's statement here depicts him as someone who was hopeless during this fight against Sukuna, which is not true since he was able to counter Sukuna's counters and eventually push Sukuna to that state at the end of chapter 235. Gojo was confident and composed during this fight and was able to find an answer to each of Sukuna's attacks. It was Sukuna who grew wary and anxious towards the end of the fight. Additionally, we also know that if it weren't for Mahoraga, Gojo would have been able to defeat Sukuna with his domain expansion, Infinite Void. So him mentioning that he could have lost against Sukuna without the Ten Shadows is untrue. Lastly, this is Gojo. Why would he even admit defeat? I think it goes against his character, his pride, his arrogance to do so, even in his final moments. In conclusion, I can sympathize with the mangaka Gege Akutami, as he has mentioned numerous times in interviews that he finds difficulty in progressing the story with such a strong character like Gojo. I understand that getting rid of him is a necessity for the story to proceed with more spotlight on other characters. However, it's Gege's job to set up the events of his death as to ensure it stays consistent with the entire story up until now. As a final note, I do hope we get more details on Gojo, especially after he mentioned his father in this latest chapter. There you go, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please let's have a friendly discussion in the comments. These are my genuine thoughts, and I would love to hear what the community thinks of the events that have transpired. Thank you for your time, and I do hope you enjoy my presence. Thank you for everything.